Now that we've put our board together, scored it, and put texture on it, it's time to plan out our color scheme. Planning your color scheme ahead of time is very important when you're building a big build, or a build that's made out of numerous pieces, because it allows you to match up the color scheme across the pieces. It's still useful even if you're making a small build or a single piece build, because it allows you to replicate effects that you liked over time and maybe use them on a different model in the future. When doing this, be sure to note the brand of each color and the shade and what you're using them to color. Be sure to note base shades, lighter shades used, and especially dry brush shades used, because those will be the final touch that you're going to use. When coloring large projects, I use regular acrylic craft paint because I need a large amount of paint, and so using regular miniature paints would be rather unaffordable. In order to apply the paint, I use a sponge, cut up the size, and keep the rest of the sponge for a later date. Now that we have everything we need, we're ready for the next phase. The next thing we need to do is to apply undercoating to our tile. When undercoating your tiles, you should take into account the shades of colors you're going to use in the future. If you're planning on using darker shades like green and brown, then you should undercoat using black. If on the other hand, you're planning a desert themed tile using yellows, whites, or ochre shades, then you should use a lighter tone of undercoating, usually shades of cream, to give your tile a more even look. Another thing you should note at this point is that you could use this phase to put in some hard coating to make your tile a little bit more durable. To do this, I use the same technique Black Magic Craft use, and I mix hard coat Mod Podge with black acrylic paint, water it down, and then apply it with gusto to my tile. That way I get all the nooks and cracks emphasized, and when it's dry, I'll be ready to go on into the next phase. Now that the undercoat is finally dry, I go over to paint the board. I do this using the principle of harder and darker to softer and lighter. This means that I start by using darker shades, pressing harder with my hand on the sponge, that way I release more paint each time, getting it deeper into the cracks. And gradually I use lighter and lighter shades with a lighter and lighter touch. This light touch makes the paint that I release catch only on the fringes or the edges, more like the raised edges of each feature, making it seem higher than the deeper, darker parts. In this way, I go in circles around the board, slowly accentuating each texture piece. Once these shades will be down, I'll be ready to go over to the next phase, which is using washes to accentuate my piece. After applying all the different shades to color our board, we used wash to emphasize the texture that we put so much work into making in the first part of our videos. Wash is a form of diluted paint or ink used to darken all those cracks and recesses in your board and really make your texture pop. Once this is done, we go over to matching up our boards with the first board that I make. I do this by slowly adding lighter and lighter shades across the edges till my two boards match up and I'm satisfied with the scheme. Once our tile matches the rest of the set, it's time to apply dry brush to really accentuate all that texture we put a lot of work into in the first part of our video. To do this, I use dry brushing, which is a technique using very light shades of paint and a very light hand on the brush to just touch up the edges or the raised edges of each terrain feature. Once I'm done dry brushing, all that's left to do is to give the tile a spraying of clear coat, invite some friends, open a beer, and hopefully avoid getting killed by the DM. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you here next week when we make hills and hilltops.